Hi, I'm Scott Campbell with Solve 3D.
I'm Kevin Miller at Solve 3D.
Kevin, we have an import function for shape and DXF files, which can be extremely, I can think of a couple of use cases, if you want to see where all the billboards are because you got some work to do on them, or if you want to train up one of our deep learning object classification models. Very useful features. So why don't you take us through how to import one of those files?
Sure. So what we're looking at here is I've already previously loaded a whole bunch of orthomosaic files for this city of Grand Junction, and I can just zoom in here. So again, you just go under Tools, under Aerial Classification, and this is where we have set up our kind of labeling tool for classifying different objects within an orthomosaic. And as you mentioned, there's an import labels tool that you can import previously defined either shape files, DXF files, or our proprietary 3DL format if you've used that. So as we noted before, maybe you're labeling a car, for example, or a building footprint. It might get a little tedious if you've created a class here called buildings and you've started, manually clicking and drawing the outline of every building. So if you do have a shapefile of these buildings already, you can import it. So I'll just do that here. So I'm gonna delete this one label I just created, and we're gonna go to import labels. And by default, like I mentioned, we support our 3DL format, the engine trained model format if you've exported in the model, the labels that are in the model, or any drawing files. So I'll stick with the drawing files. And I'm going to pick this shape file. So this can be either in a zip file of all your shape files directory, all of them combined together, or just the shape file itself. So I'll select that. And it prompts you for a couple of options. To quickly go over them, you can either apply a class mapping of existing classes. So like I've already defined buildings here, as you can see. So I can say apply everything to the buildings class. It will try to load the name if it can, if it's been defined in the shapefile or the DXF layer name. But if it can't detect it, it's just going to give it an arbitrary unknown layer name. So then you can choose to override existing labels or add to an existing set of labels. So we're going to do buildings. I should mention this geometry count is how many features it found in that shapefile. There is sort of an upper limit. It really depends on the complexity of your features. The upper limit's around 1,000 to 5,000. Maybe you could get away with 10,000 in some cases, but just be careful importing too many files. Don't try to import an entire country worth of features, especially if you have only a small image. And if you don't see any layers, it's probably being filtered out because there's too many layers. So there's an additional checkbox that'll appear sometimes if you have too many features, and we can show you a screenshot of that in the video. So I'm going to click import data. This only takes a few seconds to scan through the labels and create all of the polygons. So you see here, they're kind of in a light green format. I'm just going to rename this to building. So maybe we'll give there we go, a little brighter green. So you can see it's done a pretty good job at importing those shapefiles. Again, this would be the time, like maybe there's some calibration of your orthomosaics or your shapefiles aren't quite aligned properly, but this is where you can start making adjustments if you want to just drag out something or drag it in and tighten it up wherever it might be on your data. But yeah, you can get a pretty good idea of where your buildings are in this case for the shapefile that I've imported.
Now, Kevin, if I'm looking for buildings only, and I see that there's a railway car there and clearly not a building, can I go in and delete those labels now too?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, for example, this might not be a building here. So I can easily just, any labels I don't want, I can just right click on them and go delete. Or I can find it in this list. Maybe I'm just going through these one by one and I'm clicking zoom to area. You can see it automatically selects it. So say this isn't a building or something, I can also remove it from clicking the delete area button here.
And in the screen that we're looking at right now, if it is buildings I'm looking for, and let's say I just missed those two, can I add them as well? So I can delete, but can I also add?
Of course, so you can always create, just like you did when you were doing it manually, you can just click this add new label button and then start dragging or clicking around and double click to finish to create a new building label.
So basically then I can import the shape file or DXF file or whatever line drawing that it is, and I can then edit it. I can adjust the polygons, and I can remove them, or I can add some, and I can really fine tune it, especially if I'm going to use this for machine learning to identify, in this case, buildings.
That's right. So yeah, the next steps at this point is, adjust and make any tweaks, make sure you're happy with it. And then, you can always click the run training button to kick off training for a machine learning model, or you might want to add to an existing model. So you, again, use run training to do that. Or there's many other use cases, which we'll cover in another video. I should mention that all of these features that you import into this list do need to be polygons. So you might ask, well, what do I do when I have a shapefile that is a single point, or maybe a line object that isn't a polygon? So yeah, we do have a solution for that too. I'm just going to delete all of these buildings to show that. I have here a shapefile of billboards, and these are just point objects. So when I import them, screen looks more or less the same. I can apply the class mapping again. I can override existing labels, but there's also an additional import points point buffer question. And in that case, it's going to import 89 layers with a point buffer of, in this case, 10 meters. So maybe I want to do 3 meters. So this will make a lot more sense once we go through here. I'm going to import these. And you see, for this particular point of this billboard, it's up the center point, it's put I think I chose 3 meter buffer there. It's made a polygon of a 3 meter buffer around that point. So it's now turned it into a polygon essentially in that case. And again, it's very similar when you import line work. So say I have some line strings in a shapefile as well. You get a buffer in this case. I'll just do something ridiculous here, like 10 meters. 283 objects here, and I'm going to override all the existing labels, so that'll destroy all my billboards. And you see, maybe this was too excessive, but here's my curb edges with a 10 meter buffer around them. Here's a better example. So again, you can play with that depending what you're trying to import and what you're trying to identify.
Now, a few minutes ago, we talked about editing these files, deleting, adjusting the shapes, adding some. If I'm going to use this for machine learning and I've made some adjustments, I'm probably going to want to save that work. Is there a way that I can export that?
Yeah, for sure. So before you export, definitely make your adjustments, make sure you're happy with things, make sure your label name is called whatever you'd like here. So I can call this, I don't know, curbs. Once you're happy with everything, you can click the export labels function. So previously we had a engine label file, the 3DL file. So you can still do that if you want. I could call this curbs. Additionally, you can also change this to export as a DXF or shapefile. So I can choose to, export this as a curb shapefile. So any labels that I've defined here, I'll just do it here. Any labels that I've defined or any adjustments I've made or any new labels will all be put into that shapefile and exported for whatever else you want to do with that, with your workflow around those files.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's importing shape files or DXF files into Engine, adjusting them, and then if you need to, exporting them again. Thanks very much, Kevin.
No problem.